Gaze reading where the greats drop by. Trendy authors tell us all the who, what, and why. Anyone can listen, cause we're spoiler free. Gaze reading, from Pulitzer stars to book club picks, where the curious minds can get their fix. So you say you're not gay, well that's okay. There's something for everyone. Gaze reading.
Hello, this is Gaze Reading. I'm your host, Jason Blitman, and it is our season finale. Welcome back to those who have listened or watched before, and for those of you who are new, I am so happy to have you here. You can find Gaze Reading wherever you get your podcasts, and if you like and subscribe, not only will you be the first to know when a new episode drops, but it also really helps with the algorithm so that other people who like books, who love books, or are interested in conversations can more easily find Gaze Reading. And if you are so inclined to leave a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts, that would mean so much. This is a super independent podcast. I do it for the love. And again, with the algorithm, the more love a podcast gets in terms of stars and reviews, the more it is pushed out there to other listeners. So I really appreciate it. And thank you in advance. It means so much to me that you would do that and that you were here. And I'm grateful. So thank you. Whew, y'all. Today's guest has it and that. And for context, you should go back and listen to the most recent R. Eric Thomas conversation because it is the one and only Ann Patchett. She's on the show today. Her full and proper bio is in the show notes. This conversation, as well as many others, are on the Gaze Reading YouTube page. And I have to say, there are a few faces that Ann makes that are well worth watching. So if you are listening at some point, it might just be worth a quick little watch. And while you're over on the YouTube channel, if you can subscribe over there as well, that would be fantastic. And if you're watching on the Parnassus channel, you could pop on over to wherever you get your podcasts and like and subscribe to Gaze Reading because we are everywhere. You could find us on Instagram at Gaze Reading and find all of the places where we have other fantastic authors and other great conversations. There have been so many incredible folks who have been on the show, and you should go check out the little back catalog. So Ann and I talk about her new annotated version of Bel Canto, and then we talk about some books that we would recommend as gifts. And then at the end of the episode, after Ann leaves, I share my most memorable books of the year, which might also make for good book and gift recommendations. Speaking of gifts, this is a reminder that I'm partnering with Aardvark Book Club to provide an exclusive introductory discount. New members in the United States can join today and enter the code Gaze Reading at checkout to get their first book for only $4 plus free shipping. So if you go to aardvarkbookclub.com, that's 2 A's. Aardvark is a weird word to spell, but the link is in the show notes, so no excuses. You could just go click right there. And when you check out, enter the code Gaze Reading. First book, $4. Cheapest book around. This is ridiculous. I'm so happy that all of you are here. Thank you for being here. And now on to the show. Welcome to Gaze Reading.
Thank you.
Do you know what my heart has been doing all week?
What?
Fluttering.
Hopefully only once. One flutter per person.
It fluttered as many times as it was stated in the book. So lots and lots. I've done lots of heart fluttering. I think I'm most excited that you came out with this annotated Bel Canto and that you are here on the show today because it gave me an excuse to read the book. Because as you know, for me, if a book hits its pub day, it's old for me.
Oh. Yeah.
So I just have stacks and stacks and stacks of books that come out between now and July. And I'm just like, I can't keep up. Right. No, I know. I'm preaching to the choir. Yeah. And so I was like, wait, an excuse to read Bel Canto? Finally, it's been sitting on my shelf for so long. And I got to read it. And that was the best part.
That's so funny. You know, for so much of my life, everybody was like, Bel Canto, Bel Canto. And now, like there's a whole generation of people who have no idea that I wrote that book and they don't have any idea that the book exists.
No.
Like, you know, they'll read Dutch House, they'll read Commonwealth, Tom Lake, but they're like, Bel Canto, what's that? Makes
And
me
now here we
so
are.
happy.
Yes, we're cycling back. My first Ann Patchett was Tom Lake.
Oh, that's good.
I'm a theater kid.
Oh,
It meant a lot to me. I knew those people. I know those people.
yeah.
We have to talk about our Eric Thomas because I've had our Eric on Gaze Reading twice now, and we spend so much time talking about Ann Patchett.
I have real feelings for him. And you know what? Here's the thing about Eric. Like when we finally met, I was like, okay, we're gonna have something real. But he won't pick up the thread with me at all.
I think he's maybe nervous.
I've done everything I know how to do to, like extend the hand of genuine friendship. Like I like you.
He is the salt of the earth
And he's like, yeah,
human.
okay, bye.
Honestly, I think he's too nervous. 100%. But we love Eric Thomas. He's
So much.
fantastic and he's so talented.
So much.
And if you go back and listen to any of the episodes that he's been on Gaze Reading, you can also hear a lot about Ann Patchett because we talk a lot about you.
Did he tell you about our event at the church where like everyone was seated and we went down the aisle arm in arm? It was such a moment of my life. It was so beautiful.
So funny. Okay, Bel Canto. First, I couldn't believe I didn't read it. And now, of course, very high on my list of questions for you that you don't have to answer, and I know you're not going to want to answer because it's not fair, is what is your Bel Canto? What has been staring at you on your shelf for years and years that you can't believe you haven't read yet?
Oh, boy. I'm going to answer that without thinking because it's so hard. But it's an interesting answer. I just finished reading Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. And that's one of those books. And I have all sorts of books like this that I think everyone in the world, except for me, has read Wide Sargasso Sea. And I've just got to do it because I read so many galleys that I'm trying really hard to say every 3 or 4 books, I'm going to read something I want to read.
Yes.
So then I read Wide Sargasso Sea and I can't find anyone who's read it. I'm like going door to door in my neighborhood going, excuse me, Wide Sargasso Sea? And everybody's like, yeah, no, it's been on my bookshelf for 30 years. I've never read it.
Either that or I read it 30 years ago.
Well, that's true. Okay, the other book that is on my bookshelf right now, and I keep thinking every time I go on a long trip, I'm like, I'm going to take this. Lonesome Dove.
Oh.
I've never read Lonesome Dove. And I've read a lot of Larry McMurtry back in the day. My best friend, Patrick Ryan, said it could, like last year, he read Lonesome Dove and he said it changed his life.
Oh, wow.
So fantastic. Have you?
I have not, no. So I'm a new reader. I just started reading in like 2019 and now
You've got your work cut out for you.
And now I can't stop and I host a book podcast. So if something came out before 2019, I probably haven't read it or I read it in order to have a conversation like this.
That's adorable. Okay.
So my backlog is very long. But for me, one of the Bel Canto and Olive Kittenridge are the two that I'm like, I have to read. I've read all the Lucy books and I loved them. And so I know that the Olive books I will love.
And let me tell you, because I do believe the world is divided into Team Olive and Team Lucy. And I am totally Team Lucy.
Interesting.
I've read all of Liz's books. I adore her. I wish I was her. She's fabulous.
Okay.
But the Lucy books are definitely my favorite.
All right. Well, once I read the Olive books, I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, coming into Bel Canto with fresh eyes, what I found so interesting was I was reading it post-COVID.
Exactly.
In a time of isolation and having a collective experience with a group of humans. What did you feel in that relationship coming back to it? Because I know once you finish a book, it is in the world and you don't touch it again.
Right.
But you have revisited now.
So wait, I have to ask you a quick question though.
Yeah.
Did you read Bel Canto and then like thumb through the annotated edition?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Because I read the introduction. I knew that I wasn't supposed to read the annotated version if I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Good man.
I do my homework.
All right.
Yeah.
So the BBC did a book club during COVID of Bel Canto. It was some big radio BBC thing.
Mm,
And when they called and asked me about it, I was like, "Oh, that's smart. That's a really, really good COVID book."
yeah.
So I would say that's when I had my moment of thinking Bel
Hmm.
Canto plus COVID. It wasn't what I was thinking when I was doing the annotation.
Sure. And then you reflected on it in that moment. But did that mean it? Did you, when you were doing the annotation, did that impact you at all, or
No,
no? It just was completely unrelated.
completely unrelated.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was
I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about anything in terms of like present day or history,
right.
except, and I don't think that I put this in the annotation because it's so dark, but somebody said to me, "Oh, the thing about Bel Canto is they wouldn't people don't hold hostages anymore. They just kill everybody." Um,
Mm,
that is from the period of time in which the book was written.
hmm.
And that's a super depressing thought, but I think very true.
Yeah. The collective experience of like hierarchy going away when you take time and things fade. And I'm getting ahead of myself. For anyone who's like me and hasn't read Bel Canto yet, or hadn't read Bel Canto, or let's say there are a few people who are listening and they haven't read Bel Canto yet, do you have an elevator pitch for Bel Canto?
Oh, yeah, sure I do. I have an elevator pitch for all my books, and that's one of the
Of
great things.
course you
Once they
do.
hang around, for a while, you get it really honed. So it's a group of international, powerful people in an embassy gathered together for a party. They're taken hostage. They don't have a common language. And the common language first is dealt with through a translator. And then the next level, it is dealt with through art. And then finally, it's dealt with through love.
Mm,
How about that?
beautiful.
It's good,
Yeah, it
right?
was great.
It only took me
Though
24 years to come up with that. Yeah,
though I would argue there are lots of languages in the book. I
there
mean, not
are.
argue. I don't need to argue with you.
No, no. I
But
mean, you're talking about my elevator pitch, right?
I yes,
It's like
I
two
guess
sentences.
I know, I know.
Yeah,
You said language and then art and then love,
yeah.
with a bunch of others scattered in there too. I would say Roxanne, one of our hostages, one of our protagonist, like one of our protagonists. It's said that she sort of drifts in and out of resembling the famous soprano that she's known as, right? Because I think when we're in a situation when you're sort of living you can't live that full self 24/7,
Yeah,
right? As the
right,
soprano.
right.
Um, I'm curious for you, what does Ann Patchett need to resemble her full self?
It's all in my head,
Mm,
and I really think of like, okay, I'm gonna be her now. And I had something happen. This was maybe a week ago, and it was Library Gala weekend here in Nashville. I host the patrons party at the bookstore, and on Friday it was James McBride, really
mm,
great, and then
mm-hmm.
Saturday the library huge gala. Lots of events, public facing, and I'm Ann Patchett. I mean, I'm going to those things.
Yeah.
But then on Saturday morning, so in between the two library events that I was doing, I went to a celebration of life party for a friend's father. And this is a
Mm,
friend of mine. We've been friends since 7th grade. The people who were at that party, I knew family, my friend's family, but also lots of people from high school. And I went to that party. Well, it turns out there were a lot of people that I also didn't know. And
mm.
I got mobbed. And
Huh.
and I was like, no, 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 I'm not her. It's like
Right, right.
these are my friends and this is a memorial celebration and I'm not coming as her. I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming as myself. And I found it really shook me in a way that, like, if I'm in the grocery store and people come in, it's like, okay, that's great, that's fine. But
Yeah.
something about going back to childhood, to these childhood friends, and getting mobbed, not by them, but like by people they were with or whatever.
Sure.
Um, And then I was like, oh, wait, I've got to go because now I've got to go home and put on black tie and show up at the library gala and, do
Mhm.
that whole thing. That really messed with my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Hosokawa in the book, another one of our protagonists, talks about the private life. Right. And so I imagine there is that difference between the Ann Patchett public figure and, as I heard you say on another podcast recently, Anne Van Devender,
Yeah.
who has to do the laundry.
That,
Right. And like that's a very different thing.
yeah.
And I'm sure a tricky balance.
It's fine. It's been going on for a long time and I'm good and I can roll with it. It was almost more interesting that I got caught off guard last
Mm,
week. That's
mm,
the part that surprised me. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that I was capable of still feeling this way because
mm-hmm.
I am her so much of the time and I roll with it and it's fine and people are lovely and all of that."
Sure.
Um,
I mean, I think what's in my brain is like imagining, I don't want to say imagining you in a hostage situation, but imagining like that's sort of what Roxanne is experiencing, right? She's like, I just want to be my private self right now because we're all under duress at the moment.
yeah,
And
right.
like, we're all just people,
Right,
you
right.
know? Yeah.
It's interesting. So because of Bel Canto, I met Renee Fleming, and
Mm-hmm.
we are very good friends. And the thing that always blows my mind about Renee is she is always Renee Fleming,
Hmm.
always.
Do you
And
think that's a performer thing?
I don't know, but
Yeah.
like if she's walking around her apartment, she's wearing some unbelievably well, it's actually not an apartment anymore now, she lives in a big house in Washington, but, she's wearing some unbelievably artful Japanese shrug,
Yeah.
and when she goes to Kinko's, she does it, she just there's never a moment when she doesn't present as herself,
Yeah.
and
So what you're saying is maybe Roxanne is perfectly happy being Roxanne the
yeah.
whole time.
Yeah, maybe, which is something that I didn't know when I wrote
Yeah.
that book. So
Yeah.
many things that I didn't know. I wish I had been friends with Renee Fleming, and then I could have written the book.
Sure. So one of the early plot points of the book is that uh, essentially what is all happening is Mr. Hosokawa is at a party where he is the guest of honor and he is inspired to go because this opera star is going to be there. This opera star, Roxanne Koss. Who would your Roxanne Koss be? What would get you to the party?
Oh, that's interesting. Like who could they use as bait?
Yeah.
Well, it would be people that I know, like I have gone to a lot of parties because of Renee. I have
Huh.
gone to a lot of things and places, including Russia, that I wouldn't normally find myself in, except that
Yeah.
I was with Renee. I'm trying to think of like somebody that I know Yo-Yo Ma. I would I would go anywhere, to see
Mm-hmm.
Yo-Yo Ma, to see Emmanuel Axe. Yeah, it's classical music for me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It was really funny. I went to our town
Mm-hmm.
um, a month ago or whenever it was. I went to see it in Broadway, and after the show, they asked me to wait, and the cast stuck around, and I talked to everybody, and we all took pictures. They were very sweet. I kept saying, "I didn't write the play. I totally didn't write the play. You know that." But Jim Parsons was fantastic, and we're standing there talking, and he said, "And did you play Emily?" And I said, "No." And he said, "But you were an actress." And I said, "No." And he said, "How did you know all of that?" I was like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a writer and I make stuff up." He said, "How many Our Towns have you seen?" I said, "This is the first time I've ever seen the play." I know,
What?
because I read it. I read it. I read it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
read it,
yeah.
but I had never seen it. And I said, "And what's more than that, I don't own a television. And this day is the first time I've ever seen you act." And
Wow.
He put his hands on my shoulders. He was like, I have been looking for you for so long.
Oh my God,
I
that's
mean,
so funny.
it was so real for him to
Yeah.
be released from the roles that he is famous for. And I was like,
Mhm.
all I know about you as an actor is what I just saw you do.
Mhm.
And you're amazing.
How special.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. I have no
Um,
idea how I just went down that rabbit hole, but
that's
I'm
okay.
just dropping Jim Parsons' name all over.
We love
Yeah.
the book opens with this concept of that there's a kiss and it's remembered by lots of folks and they also probably didn't see it because it
Right.
was in darkness. And there's this idea of remembering something that we haven't actually seen. Is there something that you feel like you remember that you didn't actually see?
How would I know?
Oh, that's a
Right? Because
sure.
I mean, yeah, I think that that's really true. And it's something my sister and I talk about all the time. My sister is 3.5 years older, and I call her my external hard drive. Uh, but we go back to each other and are like, that thing, did that happen? Or do I just remember that it happened?
Hmm.
Because you get to a certain point and you think, I've been living on this memory for such a long time. Did that happen? I don't know.
Yeah. Or do I actually have a memory of it? Or did I see the photographs and that is what is replacing, or that's filling in the space of a memory? That's what happens to me.
There's a fantastic book called Hold Still by Sally Mann, the great American photographer, that talks about that, how photography stands in for memory and it becomes false in its own way.
Hmm.
Another book to add to your list.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That as a concept is very scary to me because it's just memories playing tricks on you.
Yeah.
Or your brain playing tricks on you, not memories playing tricks on you.
And you just start thinking, we all have our own truth. I mean, oh my God, if we know nothing right now in history, we all have our own truth.
Hmm.
And the thing that I'm always telling myself is that people whose memories and ideas of right and wrong are different from mine believe believe their memory.
Yeah.
Even if they constructed it in their basement in their spare time, they believe the memory that they have made, because if you say it enough, it becomes your true memory.
Right.
Memory's kind of worthless. Maybe that's what the point is.
Huh. That's very interesting. And if a memory is a reflection of the past, does that also mean the past is worthless and it's only worth looking forward and moving ahead? I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm more having an existential thought to
An
myself.
existential thought. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm unsure of my own memories. I was in New York on September 11th, and I was
Mm-hmm.
downtown
Mm-hmm.
when the towers fell, and I was with a very good friend. And years later, we sat down as like an exercise and said, "What do you remember about the day?" And it was if we had not been together all day. We had
Yeah.
had completely different experiences. So there's also that thing of memory in trauma, memory when you are just flooded with adrenaline and kind of running to save your life. We had
Yeah.
2 entirely different days and we were together all day. And to this day, I mean, I know that each of us believes that I believe I am right. She believes she is right.
Yeah. And in turn, you're both right
Right.
for your own right. It's whatever your own story is.
Right.
And who's to say what right even means?
Boy, here we go.
um, Thinking about something, if we're getting deep, there's one of the priests in the book listens to music and he says that he feels his soul fill with a kind of rapture when listening to the music. Is there something that fills your soul with a kind of rapture?
All sorts of things. I mean,
Yeah,
my soul is a wide open door ready
I
to
love
be
that.
filled with rapture. So, definitely music, but today, just it was
Mm.
just a fantastic fall day after being way too warm for way too long. Suddenly it was cold and bright and very windy, and suddenly the leaves seemed orange and were swirling around. And yeah, that fills up my soul.
It's a
Every
very lovely and optimistic outlook. I appreciate that.
I am a glass half full kind of gal, which the thing that I have realized over the course of my life is that is just the salt in my brain. That is just the hand that I was dealt. And
Yeah.
I am a cheerful, optimistic person. Even now, even in these times, I think,
Yeah.
you know what? History's hard. Look backwards. You think this is the worst time? This isn't the worst time.
No.
Things have been
I was
worse.
just in an interview this morning and I was saying that I am a glass half full, optimistic person,
Hello.
realist rising.
Yeah. Yeah. I,
Yeah,
I
I think
think I
I think
think
that's
that's
true.
a very, very fair assessment of what I am. But I get I get weary of people who associate being smart with being bitter and negative and saying, "Well, everything's
Mm,
over." Like if you were as smart as I am, you would understand the world is coming to a crashing end. And I think, yeah, no, really not so much
yeah, no. It's been coming to a crashing end for
for a really long time.
millennia,
And
right?
and and also take whatever energy you have wringing your hands and saying, "I knew it all along." Like, get off your ass and go do something about it. Yeah.
That's the pull quote of the episode. Rigoletto is Mr. Hosokawa's entryway into opera. I don't want to make any assumptions, but having consumed a lot of Ann Patchett content, is it safe to assume that Charlotte's Web is your Rigoletto?
Hmm. Yes, it is. That is a very safe assumption. Charlotte's Web is
Hmm.
my Rigoletto. But here's the interesting thing.
I love interesting things.
I had never seen Rigoletto in much the same way I had never seen Our Town. And I was in New York for a week recently, and I was staying right by Juilliard and taking the crosstown bus back and forth. And I was standing next to this big broadside from the Met. And I realized that Rigoletto was going to be playing the next day. And I was free for the matinee. And I went to see it. And oh my God, it was brilliant. It was a
Well, that's good.
fantastic production, but it's an opera I have listened to so many times
Mm,
and read about and know about. But to see it, it was such a gift.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get opera until I was in Barcelona and saw a production of Rent, the musical, performed in Catalan. And I didn't understand a word, but I obviously knew the story. And
Right.
so them singing and them emoting was what really hit me so hard and what really moved me. And it, to this day, is still one of the best pieces of theater I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot. So I have a new respect for opera, even though what I have seen has not necessarily been my cup of tea. I do think there is the right thing for me eventually.
Well, here's the thing about opera, which I didn't know anything about opera until I mapped out Bel Canto and I started
Hmm.
doing my work. You can't just walk into opera, it's like in the same way that I have been
Yeah.
to one baseball game in my life, and I found it to be existential torture because
Mm.
I was so bored because I had no idea what was going on. And I
Hmm.
think opera is the same thing. If you do the work to learn, then you're going to have an amazing experience, but it takes real effort.
Hmm. So, what does that look like? Does that look like reading the synopsis, listening to some of the music?
For me, and I tried a lot of different things.
Hmm.
The thing that really was the key to the door was a book called Opera 101 by Fred Plotkin.
It's
And
a little on the nose, Anne.
a little on the nose, but Fred Plotkin is an amazing man.
Yeah.
And I think I have sold more copies of his books than I have my own. And it explained how to learn. It put the course out there.
Huh.
You read the libretto, you listen to the music while reading the libretto, you listen to the music without reading the libretto, you place it in history. You start to be able to hear how the work is configured. And also these HD broadcasts from the Met,
Mm-hmm.
that's a game changer.
Yeah.
Because suddenly it democratizes opera, and you can be in any small town in Indiana or hey, Tennessee. Let me say
Uh-huh.
any small town in Tennessee. And for $30 you can go to the Cineplex and see Rigoletto.
Yeah.
And that's a game changer because opera is an unbelievably expensive art form, and it has not been for the masses. And opera's trying really hard. It's scrambling to save itself and
Mm-hmm.
build a new generation of audience.
The PBS link for the Bel Canto opera was not broken. It is no longer
It's
online.
not existent. Yeah.
But I did try. I wanted to watch the Bel Canto opera as well.
It's really good. It was a beautiful, beautiful opera.
Yeah.
Did
How
you watch the
special.
movie?
No.
Yeah, no one did. It's hysterical. No one. It's like impossible to see. The only people that I have ever met who have seen that movie have seen it on international flights.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
I think for me, the story makes so much sense as an opera that my instinct was more to check out the opera because I was like, oh, this is fascinating
It's
that it would be
opera. Yeah.
adapted that way because, of course, it's right there. Okay, I'm shocked when I was reading the annotated version that there's that infamous moment on page 13
Mhm.
where readers just completely missed that you channeled the ending and told everyone the ending.
Yeah.
Which was when I did my first read was so obvious to me. I want to even tell you, what did I write in the margins?
Oh my God. They're all going to die.
I said, like Shakespeare, knowing how it will end with the line written underlined. Because of course that's exactly what you did, and that's exactly what Shakespeare did with his prologues, is tell you these two lovers are going to die at the end.
Yeah.
So that's going to make it extra sad for you when you watch this whole story. It's like Titanic. You consume any content about Titanic, and it's so tragic because you watch these people fall in love, and we know what's going to happen at the end.
Yeah. And for me, I always say it's like Love Story because that's how old I am. But yeah, it begins, that movie with Ryan O'Neal and Ally McGraw begins with Ryan O'Neal sitting in an empty baseball stadium. What do you say about Jenny? She loved Bach, Beethoven, and me. Jenny's dead. Okay, so that's good. That's good to know. We are not watching it thinking, is Jenny going to pull through? She's not going to pull through. But hey, here's the news. None of us are going to pull through.
Yeah.
And we miss life because we're so focused on whether or not we're going to make it. We're not going to make it.
Right.
So time to pay attention to life.
Yeah. And so in the confines of this story, it's like, okay, we know that these hostages are not going to die within the context of this book.
Right. Right.
So let's not stress about that and let's just learn about their relationships. And it's a gift that you give to the readers to just say, sit back and learn about these humans, or get to the edge of your seat and learn about these humans.
Yeah. Or stress over the fact that you will become very attached to the people who will die.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's true. It's very upsetting. The annotated Bel Canto, which I'm obsessed with, it's gorgeous.
Doesn't it look like a high school textbook? I love.
You know what? It does, and I'm obsessed
the way
with
it
looks.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so true.
Yeah.
Now I want to go put a brown paper covering
Yes,
it or something.
exactly. But the dimensions and the shine and the cover, it's just, when I opened that box, I was like, wow.
Well, and it really projects, I think, what you can take from the book too. You're going to learn when you open these pages.
Yeah.
The annotated Bel Canto is like an open rehearsal.
Interesting.
And that
Say
was
more.
very special to me. Well, a writer's process is solitary, is private. and is emotional, and you work through things on your own in your little space, and it's safe.
Mhm.
And as a theater director, a rehearsal is a private, safe, very confined, very comfortable environment, and you are vulnerable when you are in front of an audience for the first time. And if you let someone into the rehearsal process, you are even more vulnerable because you're still figuring the stuff out. And so
Okay.
we really got the insight to you figuring the stuff out. Even more so, it's present day, and I don't want to use the word judging because that isn't fair. Having conversation with 36-year-old Anne.
Yeah.
And so it's an extra layer of vulnerability that I think is a very special and valuable experience as a reader. So thank you for that.
Can I just say, though, so many people have said to me, and I don't mean, and I haven't done a lot of interviews for this. This is not something that I'm doing a ton of publicity for or going
Mm-hmm.
on tour for, but people that I know have said, boy, you just made yourself so vulnerable. You just really laid out all of your dirty laundry and all of your mistakes. And I think it's not vulnerability, it's just interesting. It's really interesting in terms of the craft and how you write a novel.
You could say that now.
Yeah.
I bet I think it's vulnerable. I feel vulnerable for 36-year-old Anne. Maybe that's because I'm 36.
Okay. All right.
Right. And so I'm reflecting on how will I feel in 24 years, reflecting back on when I re-listen to episodes of Gaze Reading.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I would feel vulnerable if I was critiquing this tomorrow.
Sure. Right. Yes.
Right. But I
Right.
think in the future,
But when
there's
you're
enough
60,
time and buffer.
right, when you're 60 and you listen to this again and you think, I should have asked her this,
Yeah.
or how bold of me to ask her that. I'm
Mm-hmm.
proud of myself. I am disappointed in myself all at the same time. It's not vulnerable. It's just
Yeah.
interesting.
Sure. It's maybe less of an open rehearsal and more of like a documentary
Yeah. Yeah.
of what the process was like that many years ago. Is there something you would say to your younger self now, other than commas
Get a
and
copy editor, maybe. Yeah. Um,
other than that, like sort of in a holistic sense, is there something you would say to your younger self?
work harder.
Oh, interesting.
Work harder. Just go over it 100 times more because I
Mm,
was capable.
mm.
And if I had done things like that I do now, read things aloud, just go over them again and again and again, um, I could have made that book better. And I really, when I was doing the annotated version, I had this moment of thinking, maybe instead of circling all my mistakes, I could just fix them and bring
Mm.
out Bel Canto Taylor's version. And I could make this an amazing book now.
Hmm.
And the structure would be the same. I would just clean up the mistakes. But the problem is, because I am not Taylor Swift, everybody who had read it before, would say, oh, it was so much better the way it was.
Mm.
And so I couldn't do that. I had to just circle all the mistakes and leave it out there. But it was a very
Interesting.
interesting thing to think about. Well, what if I just fix them?
Yeah. Do you know the movie Picnic?
No.
Okay. It's a classic movie starring like Rosalind Russell and other people, but it's based on a play called Picnic
Yeah.
by a playwright named William Inge. And the producers on Broadway for the original production didn't like the way it ended. And they were only going to fund it if he ended the play the way that they wanted it to end. And so he did, and it became a very famous play. It's been revived on Broadway multiple times. It was turned into a film. But then he went back and rewrote the play to be what he wanted it to be, and it's under a different name called Summer Brave.
Yeah.
And it was certainly less popular, but the product that he wanted out in the world is what also exists. So it's fascinating because the plays are almost identical, but it's not dissimilar from what you were saying about some nips and tucks and fixes and changes and maybe, chunks here and there. And that's what he did with this second version of the play that no one even really knows about, but it's there.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could do it, and you could, instead of Bel Canto, Taylor's version, it could be called Bel Canto. With the
Okay. So here's an interesting thing. One of the things that I got out of this book was a real understanding of my own process and the way that I write now, which I think is very weird. And I just rewrite everything over and over and again, micromanaging every word and every sentence. And when I went back and read Bel Canto, I thought, God, I'm glad that I write that way now. This is really a better way for me to be writing. But I'm writing a novel now, and I have 50 pages of it. And I have a very close friend in Australia, and she said, for my birthday, I want you to make a recording of something. I want you to read something to me, anything you want. And so I read her the first chapter of this novel that I'm writing, which nobody.
My birthday is April 6th.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, hey, by April 6th, I may be done with it.
I'm teasing.
And I read the first chapter, made a long voice note, and she said to me, I don't know what happened to you in between Tom Lake and this, but she's like, you have really changed. And I said, I know what happened to me. I did Bel Canto.
Wow.
I went through and did the annotation, and it really, I think, both gave me confidence, but also just said to me, just stay in the language for as long as you want. Make it absolutely right. Don't rush through anything. And it just gave me this incredible permission. And it was really so kind of my friend to be like, yes, this is working.
Wow. How amazing to even know that difference is recognized.
I know.
You could see the change in yourself, but for it to show that clearly in essentially a rough draft audio message, that's very cool. How special to have an opportunity to reflect on work like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so something that you get frustrated by yourself in this book. Well, let me start by telling my anecdote, and you'll understand why. Okay, I never thought I would tell you this. I never thought I'd have the opportunity to tell you this. And even if I did have the opportunity, I would have never even told it to you because it's embarrassing and it's stupid and it's silly, but it is relevant and you will understand.
We want to know. We're making ourselves vulnerable here.
We're very vulnerable. I was in conversation with Claire Lombardo the evening that she met you. So she was with you that morning and with me that evening.
Okay.
And because I saw that on her Instagram, the very first thing we did when we sat down in front of the audience at the bookstore, I was like, you have to tell me about Ann Patchett. And we were like going on and on talking about Ann Patchett. And I was being very silly. And the first silly thing that came to my mind was, did she smell good?
And what did Claire Lombardo say?
That's the important question.
Right?
I think she was like, yes, magical, like roses, like books. I don't know. It was very cute because, again, it was just this very silly moment. But the reason why I'm bringing it up in the context of the annotated Bel Canto, aka the ABC, is because you address how often you bring up the way a woman's hair smells.
Jesus. Oh, that's the worst of all the embarrassing things.
Well, sure, but what's interesting, and again, embarrassing, and I'm being vulnerable, because I was like, is that where my brain went first? Like, tell me how Ann Patchett smelled. Was it a silly thing for me to say to get a laugh out of it?
Did her hair smell like flowers? No one want to know. Right?
But I guess subconsciously, that is just like a thing. That is it that it's feminine, right? I don't know. Like you went on this journey and now you're kicking yourself and we're never gonna know how any of your female characters' hair smells ever again in any book.
Never going there again. But it goes back to what I was just saying about writing and just thinking, is this like a little crutch? Is this a filler? Or does this matter?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And I interviewed Andre Debus a few weeks ago, and the guy is like, he's like a slot machine. He just quotes authors. He has access to a million brilliant quotes in his head. And he said, actually, when we were on stage, his wife was like, "You're a Rolodex. You're not actually clever." But the one that he said that has just stuck with me was a Rumi quote, which was, "Run away from cleverness towards bewilderment." And so all these moments, like saying her hair smelled like flowers. Jesus, does that ever really happen? It's something that happens in novels. And so now if I write something like that, I go back and read it and I think, take that out. That's ridiculous. Like, say something true about this woman, not what her hair smells like. Now, can I tell you my Claire Lombardo story?
Of course.
So Claire was at the store just right when we got our dog Nemo. And I think that it might have even been Nemo's first day on the job in the bookstore. And our social media person, Sarah, took a picture of me, Nemo, and Claire, and we're each holding one of his paws. And he looks like the happiest dog in the world. It is his glamour shot. Also, we haven't had him that long, but he's gotten fat. It's we're not doing this dog any favors. He looked amazing when we got him, downhill from there. But it's my husband's screensaver on his phone. And every time his phone rings and I look at it and I'm like, me, Nemo, Claire Lombardo?
I'm texting her as soon as we hang up to tell her that. That is so
I just
funny.
Thinking people at work are, looking at his phone and saying, okay, that's your wife and that's your dog. Who is the pretty brunette? And he's going to be like, no idea.
That is so funny.
Which
that is a good story.
A great presence in our life.
Oh my God. Adore her. That's amazing. My takeaways from Bel Canto, thinking about language, was of course literal language, and the language of art, but also the language of time and music and chess and cards, and the amount of languages that don't require being able to literally understand one another.
Yeah.
And it was just a very powerful reminder that we can coexist, especially using art, especially right now. And it doesn't have to be one thing, and we can understand each other in a whole lot of new and different ways.
Yes, absolutely. And I have to say, I've gone through periods of thinking, art, seriously, novels, literary fiction, like, what am I doing? It doesn't make any difference. It's a fiery ball. And there is something about a totalitarian regime that really does make me sit up straight and think, I'm going to write a novel. I'm going to make art and save the world. I feel energized by oppression.
It's funny you say that, because I am not a writer, and I've had one sort of nugget of an idea noodling around in my head for like 10 years now. And that's essentially the thesis, like, why art right now? And it has become a little louder as the weeks have gone on. I'm still not a writer. I don't have the patience to be a writer. And I think, you said, why did you write that? Just throw that out. That doesn't matter. That's not true. Like, I feel like I just fill the page with things like that. So that's besides the point. But I know I feel that deeply.
Life is a series of stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. You keep saying that you're not a writer, you won't be a writer. Tell yourself a different story. You'll
There. Ann Patchett said.
I just minutes before we got on found out was actually now a thing. There's a Spotify playlist of all of the music, and it's under something like Ann Patchett's Bel Canto, and it's largely Renee Fleming, and they Decca, I think, put it together. And So you can actually listen to the music. And this has long been
Yeah.
my dream, but it dropped today.
Oh, amazing. It'll be linked in the show notes
Oh, I love that.
of this
Thank you.
episode. Okay. This is my holiday episode.
Okay.
we need to hear what Ann Patchett is recommending. And there's a great quote from Bel Canto that says, "The quality of the gift depends on the sincerity of the giver."
Okay.
I feel that very deeply. Do you like receiving gifts?
I hate receiving gifts.
I hate receiving gifts, and I knew you would too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
When's your birthday?
December 2nd.
Oh, I'm not like a big astrology person, but we've had enough overlap where I was like, maybe we'd be the same.
It's a problem. And part of it is people send me things all the time, no matter how much I beg them not to. And I don't know what to do with the things that people send me. And I don't need anything. And I'm trying to have a smaller life. I just really don't like gifts unless it's going to perish instantly. A food, candle, hand lotion, stationery. My childhood best friend, who's always like, she's such a gift giver. She's like, you have to let me give you a gift. And I finally said, stamps or stationery.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
it's
good advice.
Not going to stick around. Okay. But you want me to recommend some books?
Well, yes, of course.
All right,
You are
what I do.
one of our favorite booksellers in all the world.
Okay. So, I mean, the most obvious one is James by Percival Everett. No. Which won the National Book Award last night.
Yes, it did.
It's the book of the year and the book of the decade, and it's the book. It's
a wonderful book.
Really, if everyone in the country read this book, I think we could solve a lot of the problems of America. It's brilliant. I am obsessed with Niall Williams' This Is Happiness. And last Tuesday, the new Niall Williams came out, Time of the Child. And it is not a sequel to This Is Happiness, but there are the same characters and it's in the same town. Great Irish literature. I loved Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, which was
Gay's reading guest, Kaveh Akbar.
Is he something else or what?
Cannot get over him.
Cannot get over him.
I had a lot of feelings last night because I wanted him to win. I was glad that James won. But Kaveh's, he'll have more chances.
It's interesting. We were doing an event at the bookstore last night and we were all waiting and somebody said, "Oh, but I love Kaveh so much." And I was like, a guy who has written one novel up against a guy who has written 31 novels.
Yeah.
This is the moment for Percival Everett to win.
Yes. Yes.
I loved that book. Louise Erdrich's Mighty Red. Doris Kearns Goodwin, An Unfinished Love Story. I am a big Doris Kearns Goodwin fan. So if you like some American political history, it's a wonderful book. She worked for the Johnson administration and her husband worked for the Kennedy administration. And it was just this through line throughout their marriage. He was always on Team Kennedy and she was always on Team Johnson. And it's a great book. Amy Tan's Backyard Bird Chronicles. Incredible gift book. She spent her pandemic drawing birds in her backyard and writing little essays about them. And I love that. Billy Collins was here last night with Water, Water. And we all need to read more poetry. And if you don't read poetry comfortably, Billy Collins is the place to start. He's such a good guy. Such a good guy. Children's books, because we should do that too.
Yes, we should.
Hotel Balzar by Kate DiCamillo, a little tiny middle grade novel about a little girl after the war living in the servants' quarters of a hotel. And for picture books, Sophie Blackall's Ahoy. Are you starting to panic? Are you starting to wish you hadn't asked me?
No, I have a stack next to me in case you were going to turn the question back on me.
Hey, let me turn the question back.
Do you know this?
No.
After the Fall by Dan Santat?
No.
It is what happens after Humpty Dumpty falls.
I'm into it.
And how he needs to get back up again.
I
tell you, this book made me sob. It's fantastic.
Hey, do you know a book called Duck, Death, and Tulip?
No,
Write
but
that
tell
down.
me more.
That's a picture book. That's going to be your favorite book. When you just said we have some overlap, And that's a book that people are so horrified by. And I'm like, if you like this book, you will understand everything about me.
Interesting. Me and Jenny Jackson, too. We have very similar taste in things. So this is,
Yeah.
we're on a good roll. This, of course, congratulations, the best is over. Would give to anyone.
Best.
This
Also, an amazing audio.
Such a good audio.
Such good audio.
And he reads his other books too,
Yeah.
Eric Thomas. He's so good. Start Here by Sola El Whaley is a cookbook. This is a cookbook for people who are stressed out about cookbooks.
Interesting.
It holds your hand every step of the way, and it is designed to be user-friendly visually. So it doesn't take you forever to like find the things.
I love it. I love it.
And one of my favorite books that I picked specifically because we're talking about Bel Canto is Anxious People by Frederick Backman. It is a fellow hostage book.
Okay.
Very different. Did you not read it?
I haven't read it, but that's a big seller at the store. People love that book.
Terrific book. Also a hostage book. So you could read it in concert with Bel Canto.
And I want to recommend one book to you while we're talking.
Yeah.
Maybe another book to you but I can recommend.
I can also cut whatever we want.
This is the thing. I want you to get a book by Todd Doty called Little Pieces of Hope. Do you already have it?
He handed it to me 2 weeks ago.
Jesus, I love that book so much. I love him.
Such a nice guy.
We call each other true friend. That is our mutual pet.
That's so cute.
That book rewires your brain with joy. I don't know how it works. I really read it, every word of it, and something in my brain just shifted. Also,
and we need that right now.
Have you read it yet?
No.
It just a page.
It's on my list. As soon as we hang up, I'm going to text Claire Lombardo and I'm going to start reading this.
You don't need to sit down and read all the way through. Just pick it up and read a little bit. Ross Gay's Book of Delights is another one that just super to keep by the bed. That's page-long essays. 2 really good books to pull us out right now. Oh, another book I loved this year that's so off-brand for me, but I loved it. Sipsworth by Simon Van Goy, about an old woman in England who takes in a mouse. Loved it. Okay, but here's the main thing I want to tell you.
Yeah.
There's a book coming out this fall called Buckeye by Patrick Ryan, and I want you to promise me you'll have him on the show.
Okay.
It is an amazing book. He is my best friend. The Dutch House is dedicated to Patrick Ryan. He spent 8 years writing this book. It's going to be big.
Done.
And yeah.
Can't wait.
It's so good.
I should do like a podcast goodbye.
What is a podcast goodbye?
Well, like say goodbye so that you don't say to me in 2 minutes, "Oh, Jason, I have to go," and then I just like end things. So I could say like, "Ann, it was great to have you here."
It was such an honor. It was such a pleasure and an honor. I loved it.
Such a pleasure. Please, it's an honor to have you, and your recommendations mean the world. And I already blame you for my TBR list because I often check out your If You Haven't Read It, It's New to You series on the Parnassus Instagram page. And I have a group thread with dear friends, Ashley and Lauren, and it's called TBR, and we're always talking about books. And every once in a while, we'll send Ann Patchett made me do it when we have books that we bought because we saw it on your...
The English Understand Wool. Oh, God, you've got to read. You die. It's tiny.
And your list is
tiny.
So
It's
long.
like a little golden book. It'll take you an hour to read it. Helen DeWitt.
Okay.
That was the one that I did a video for, and it like sold out all across the country. It's amazing.
You're doing very important work.
I'm doing God's work. I am.
You really are.
I am.
I know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ann Patchett. The one and only Ann Patchett, y'all. It was Ann Patchett. I can't believe it. So now quickly, I just want to run through some of my most memorable books of the year. You know, thinking about favorites, I wouldn't even say they're favorites. I loved them all so much, but there are so many books that I've loved this year. And when I think about a book that sticks with you, that is what's worth noting. There's something about it that you remember, whether it's a scene or how you felt or a character or something. And that is what all of these books did for me. So I'm just going to run through them. They're in alphabetical order by the author's last name. I'll give you a little bit about them because I'm sure most of them, if not all of them, are already on your radar. But just in case, here we go. Okay. Martyr by Kaveh Akbar, a newly sober orphan son of Iranian immigrants, guided by the voices of artists, poets, and kings, embarks on a remarkable search for a family secret. Kaveh is a poet first, and his writing is just beautiful and spectacular. It has really stuck with me. Get the Picture by Bianca Bosker, probing everything from cave paintings to Instagram, and from the science of sight to the importance of beauty as it examines art's role in our culture, our economy, and our hearts. Get the Picture is a rollicking adventure that will change the way you see forever. Can confirm. I had the absolute pleasure of going gallery hopping with Bianca in New York, and she is as delightful as this book is. James by Percival Everett. I obviously just have to shout that out. If you are unfamiliar, it is a brilliant, action-packed reimagining of the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, both harrowing and darkly humorous, told from the enslaved Jim's point of view. I have nothing else to add than has already been said, but if you haven't had a chance to read it, pick it up. And if you're wondering whether or not you need to read Huck Finn first, I say you do not have to. Real Americans by Rachel Khong, an exhilarating novel of American identity that spans 3 generations in one family, asks what makes us who we are and how inevitable are our futures. I am obsessed with a richly written family story, and this is just that. And Rachel is a delight. This book, Oye, by Melissa Mogollon, is a coming-of-age comedy, a telenovela-worthy drama, a moving family saga, all in a phone call you won't want to hang up on. It is Melissa's debut. It is so unique and exciting, and I am on the edge of my seat to see what she does next. She also is a delight. Sandwich by Catherine Newman, a moving, hilarious story of a family summer vacation full of secrets, lunch, and learning to let go. I laughed on every page. I cried at the end. I am obsessed with Catherine Newman as a person, and the book is short enough that you could read it in a few hours. I read it twice this year, and dare I say, it is a delicious sandwich. Terrible puns. Okay. A Bit Much by Lindsay Rush. It is a debut collection of poetry. It is a humorous and joyful celebration of big feelings, tender truths, and hard-won wisdom. I don't like poetry. I don't get poetry. I am obsessed with this book. It was pitched to me as poetry for a millennial woman, and I devoured it and loved every single page, and she's also a delight. So many of these folks have been guests on Gaze Reading, including Lindsay Rush. Colored Television by Danzy Senna, a brilliant take on love and ambition, failure and reinvention, and the racial identity industrial complex from the best-selling author of Caucasia. This book has truly stuck with me for so long. It is the inner workings of LA, Hollywood, but also just a very human story. There are Rivers in the Sky by Elif Shafak, an enchanting new tale about 3 characters living along 2 great rivers, all connected by a single drop of water. This book feels like a cousin of Martyr because it has beautiful prose, and I was truly captivated from the very beginning. The Safekeep by Yael Vanderwooden, an exhilarating, twisted tale of desire, suspicion, and obsession between 2 women staying in the same house in the Dutch countryside during the summer of 1961, a powerful exploration of the legacy of World War II and the darker parts of our collective past. The Safekeep is sapphic, Call Me By Your Name. That was so steamy, it made me question my own sexuality. It is also a relatively slim book, and it is so terrific. All right, and last but most certainly not least, All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker, a missing person mystery, a serial killer thriller, a love story, a unique twist on each. Chris Whitaker has written a novel about what lurks in the shadows of obsession and the blinding light of hope. In full disclosure, I hugged the advanced reader copy when it arrived on my doorstep, and I was so relieved that it lived up to the expectations that I already had for the book. It is long, but each chapter is only a few pages, and it moves so swiftly, you will not be able to put it down. So those are some of my most memorable books of the year. I cannot wait to see what some of your most memorable books of the year are. And that's all I got. These will all be in a bookshop.org link that will be in the show notes, so you don't have to necessarily write everything down. All of the books that Anne recommended, all of these books will be on bookshop.org. You could get them there. Some of these books were, again, a part of Aardvark Book Club. You could sign up with the Gaze Reading Code at aardvarkbookclub.com. 99% of these folks were on Gaze Reading this season, and it has been such an absolute pleasure and honor getting to talk to all of these people. And you can go back and listen to some of those conversations. If you're not quite sure if the book is for you, you can get a vibe about the book, you can get a vibe about the author, and it's a great, great and exciting way to explore whether or not a book might be for you. All of that said, if you're liking what you're hearing, please share it with your friends, follow on social media. We're at Gaze Reading on Instagram. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And this has been truly, truly wonderful. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season, a very happy new year, and I look forward to more books, more fun stuff in 2025. Fantastic. Happy New Year, everybody. See you very soon. Bye.